Italian Football Podcast.
Okay, well, listen, I'll try and be clear that two things can be true at the same time. Now, with this case, first of all, the Plus Valenza scandal. As I've said time and again, Juventus took the piss with inflating transfer fees. They clearly did it on an industrial level. But, and for the other side of it, as Nima, as you've said yourself, Juventus being punished for this is on, extremely shaky legal ground, especially given that there is no law against inflating transfer fees. I know it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, it is.
I consider the 15-point penalty a joke, personally, and I've also said that everyone does it, and obviously that there's reasons for why Juventus are the only ones that have been punished, as the question, as is put out in the question. But, the fact is, as of now, for whatever reason, no one else has been punished. Not that I believe anyone else should, or that Juventus should. But as I have always said, Juventus did it, and they did it on an industrial level. So I'm not arguing that they haven't done it. But there's two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
As for Juventus paying staff under the table during COVID, again, unlike the Plus Valenza scandal, I have always said, so let me just say allegations, just in case you get sued.
I was just going to say, you're going to get sued. Watch your mouth.
Yeah. With Juventus allegedly paying staff under the table.
Thank you.
Unlike the Plus Valenza case, I have always said that this is incredibly serious. I don't consider the Plus Valenza scandal serious. I consider this to be extremely serious. And as I've said, and as I've tweeted on numerous occasions, if Juventus are indeed found guilty of this, and from what has come out, what has come out isn't the same amount of stuff that's come out, let's say, on the Manchester City stuff, where for me it's an open and shut case because it's all out there. It's been hacked. They've had their accounts and their emails and everything hacked, and we've seen everything, and they're admitting it. So for me, that's pretty clear. With Juventus, it doesn't look good for them, right? And it is, if they are indeed, when everything does come out and they are found guilty, this is incredibly serious. They deserve a heavy penalty and punishment for it. I don't know exactly what that would be, but I have tweeted that just from where we are now, 15 points or so, I would say would be appropriate. But again, we don't know the full information. But I wouldn't, come back with some of the same arguments that I have on the Plus Valenza scandal, because I consider that a bit of a joke, that 15-point penalty. But on this is extremely serious. This is tax evasion. This is
this is everything under the sun. Yeah,
and there are clear rules on this that you can't do this in or outside of sport. In and outside of sport, you can't do
you
this.
can't.
So it's very, very serious. With regards to Juventus being singled out, I mean, you're calling this a conspiracy. Okay, sometimes...
Well, it's because you refer to it, I think, as a witch hunt. And when you use that terminology, because witch hunt is when someone's innocent. They're not innocent here. We can't say that.
Okay, maybe I've used the wrong word there. With regards to Juventus being singled out, yes, in my opinion, they have been singled out. But for the same reason I've said before, two things can be true at the same time. I've not denied what Juventus have done in the Plus Valenza case, or what seems to have happened in the allegedly paying players under the table. But whatever the legal explanation is for why only Juventus have been punished, and I know there are legal reasons for that.
There are.
It's still a fact that only Juventus have been punished. So in that sense, it is only Juventus that are being. Well, if you want to call it singled out.
Well, because Juventus, we have
language you want to use.
Yeah,
whatever
but the
explanation, only Juventus have been punished. So
the reason
that's my point.
Yeah, the reason why Juventus have been investigated as hard as they have is because, again, publicly traded companies are under far higher scrutiny than non-public traded company. I mean, this is one of the reasons why, for example, the Friedkins are trying to take Roma off the stock exchange. I mean, because that way, when it's a fully privately owned company, you can't. Of course, there are laws in place and you have to follow, but you're not as rigidly controlled, and it's a different set of rules because of when you're publicly traded. You have certain advantages, but with every advantage comes a responsibility, and so on and so forth. So there are levels, like there are different laws in place here, and that's why Juventus have been so severely scrutinized because they are publicly traded, and and once you're publicly traded, you're also impacting the entire market, the entire stock exchange, and as such, there is much higher scrutiny. Much higher scrutiny.
And the other thing that I've said, which he might be referring to, is and this I've not said this as a conspiracy, but all I would say is that carrying on from the idea of being singled out is that even if Juventus are guilty of mass murder, whatever, even if it's absolutely clear as day that they're absolutely 100% guilty of going on a killing spree. The fact is that with any case, you have to have a fair trial.
Of course you do.
When you have one of the prosecutors in the
we're going to get to that because that's the second question.
Yeah, but no, this is important though. This is important for me making my overall point. When you have one of the prosecutors in the Prisma capital gains investigation saying publicly that he's a fan of Napoli, that he hates Juventus, that he's anti-Juve. Making fun of them not winning the Champions League, which I don't think is that serious, but still you shouldn't be saying it. When you have members of CONI who are going to decide on the follow up on this case, doing anti-Juventus posts on social media. Not one, I think there's three of them. One of them said Juve merda on social media. Another of them making numerous attacks on Agnelli, saying that the history of the Agnelli is one of crooks, which might be true, but you can't say that. Saying Juventus must be relegated. He actually used those words, that Juventus must be demoted. And then another one. You could still argue this is a conflict of interest, but this is not so much of a big deal. The fact that one of them is a former general manager of Napoli, that is a conflict of interest. It's not a fair trial. This has got nothing to do with the fact of whether they're guilty or not. It's just a basic requirement it's a fundamental rule of law. You're right to a fair trial.
Yeah.
When people talk about
I want to talk about
being
this.
Targeted. I know we're going to get to that question, but I just wanted to say this first. Now you can come back to what you want to say on this when we get to the question from Arash. But the right to a fair trial is fundamental in the rule of law and democracy.
Absolutely.
So that again adds to the idea of are they specifically these guys? Are they specifically targeting Juventus? So that's where that comes from. The final point I want to make on this is everything I say or do on or off this podcast, and anybody that's followed me for 15 years, back in the days when I was at Goal, knows that, and I think most people know this, but you get a few fans that don't want to see it that way. Everything that I do is with Serie A's best interests at heart. I'm not going to be right all the time. I'm going to make mistakes sometimes. I might use the language wrongly. I might get emotional because I love the league so much. But it's never about one club or another with me. Never. I fell in love with Serie A as a kid. It's my biggest love. I support every Serie A team in Europe, which, let me tell you, most Serie A fans don't. They support their club and they cheer against their rival teams in Europe. I cheer at every single team in Serie A team in Europe like it's my own. And all I want is a strong Serie A and a strong Italy national team. And, so it does frustrate me when, and I think Gianluca Vialli, the late Gianluca Vialli, he had an amazing quote on this a few years ago, which I was trying to find before this pod, but I can't find it. But he basically said how Italian football clubs and fans and the people that work in the league, they're so short-sighted that they spend all their time fighting and trying to destroy each other that they never come together to build something special. And that is what has helped kill Italian football. And it's one of the oldest rules in politics. You'll know your politics. Divide and rule. Divide and conquer. Whatever you want to call it. It's the oldest political trick in the book. While we, Italian football fans, Italian football clubs, Italian football officials, while we are fighting each other, our enemies, if you want to call it the Premier League, are united and killing us. So
Carlo's about to invade England.
Yeah. So I just wish, if I can give an overall, I just wish Italian football fans would unite a bit more, okay, you might say some of the things I say sometimes are not maybe you might say that isn't useful for uniting people, maybe, but ultimately that's what I want. I want Italian football fans to be united. So yeah, just to conclude, to make it clear, what Juventus have done is clear. and they deserve a serious punishment for the wages scandal, not the Plusvalenza scandal. I think that's a joke. I'm being honest, but the wages scandal, absolutely. If that is as it looks like they're guilty, then absolutely they deserve a serious punishment for that. But that doesn't mean at the same time that I can't acknowledge, that they're the only ones being punished for whatever reason that is, or the fact that there is the conflicts of interest and
we're going to
whether or not it's a fair trial. Again, I can still bring that up at the same time.